Hello, YouTubers. This is Gold Standard User 924 coming at you with a WWE review for you guys today. WWE Roadblock just went off the air, and overall, I gotta say, I really enjoyed the show. I really thought the wrestlers really gave it their all. However, in terms of storyline advancements, not really much got accomplished. So, this was basically an event that the WWE Network did on their on demand service. So, basically you're unable to purchase this event on cable or in terms since wasn't even billed as a pay-per-view. So for the most part, this show was enjoyable. If I had, especially if I had to choose between this show and Fastlane, I would definitely go with Roadblock. And without further ado, I'm just gonna kind of list the card here. Basically, we started off the show with a tag team title defense for the WWE tag title specifically, since there was also the NXT tag title match in the same night. So, the New Day defending the belt against Sheamus and King Barrett. So basically, prior to the match, the New Day basically cut a promo introducing their Bootios T-shirt merchandise, and as well as a parody of the Bootios cereal commercial, Bootios cereal box that they had. I was gonna say cereal commercial for a reason. They opened up the show with a promo before starting up the match, and it was actually a pretty solid performance, and it only ran for 10 minutes. And the New Day went over the League of Nations to retain the tag titles. So I'm thinking that the New Day and the League of Nations feud is going to continue. And it's just really a shame to see how much Sheamus and Barrett have been falling, especially since Sheamus had been WWE champion and then he lost a couple times to Roman Reigns. And now he's kind of floundering in the mid card. And then you also have King Barrett, who is basically announced to be leaving the WWE in the next couple months. So, regardless, this was actually a really good match, and I'm not really sure how long the New Day are going to still hold the tag title belts. I thought for sure they were going to lose it to Chris Jericho and AJ Styles on Raw, but that didn't happen, and then they're going to resume the Chris Jericho AJ Styles rematch for WrestleMania, which I would really be excited if they hadn't done that match so many times, especially on WWE programming and on like free TV and stuff. So, especially now that it's WrestleMania time, it's like what's the point now, really? But then again, with Jericho being a heel and all, so it's kind of making it a little bit refreshing to a certain extent. So I might as well just talk about the next match afterwards. So speaking of Chris Jericho, he faced Jack Swagger in a one-on-one match, and yeah, this was a pretty solid match. And I was kind of surprised that Jack Swagger suddenly made it on the card since he just hasn't really been doing as much lately. And Chris Jericho just cut a promo, just trashing the Canadian crowd, despite the fact that this was in his home country of Canada. So they had him face Jack Swagger, which was a pretty interesting pick to say the very least. And I say that because this is since this event was held in Canada. So Jack Swagger was basically your all-American patriot. So it was pretty clear that he was going to get booed. So, and especially with Chris Jericho recently turning heel and doing all he can to get some heel heat on the from the fans. So this was actually kind of an interesting dynamic in a way, but it was kind of hard to really cheer for which wrestler. But the match didn't really go on for very long. Chris Jericho went over Jack Swagger by the walls of Jericho, and I was thinking that AJ Styles would have came out during or after the match to attack Chris Jericho, so that way they would announce that Jericho and AJ are going to fight at WrestleMania, but that didn't happen. So I felt like um, there could have been some sort of attitude era booking, which I'm kind of accustomed to, where like a wrestler would interfere during or after a match and basically announcing the match. So, like I said, I was very surprised that didn't happen. So, Jericho went over Jack Swagger in a kind of a solid match, really. Nothing out of this world. But we do, however, have a really good, if not great, tag team title defense from NXT. So this was basically kind of like their NXT spotlight match. So the Revival, who go in as champions, taking on Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy. So I might have mentioned in some of my previous videos that I haven't really watched a whole lot of NXT, and I'm pretty tempted to watch an episode of NXT, but I have to have a lot catching up to do, so I can't really speak too much about these two teams. But this was actually really impressive. I thought, especially for my the first time I'm actually watching these two teams wrestle, and the Revival defeated Enzo and Colin Cassidy to retain the belts. So yeah, this was actually a pretty close match, and it looked like Enzo and Colin were gonna win this match, but the Revival ended up finding a way to turn the tides and basically walk out as still your NXT Tag Team Champions. And then we also have is the Divas title defense between Charlotte taking on Natalia. Another really good match. And I was actually surprised that Charlotte's defending the belt because she's already set to take on Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch for WrestleMania. So I was like, man, what would happen if Natalia won the belt from Charlotte? Would they make it a fatal four-way match? It was questionable at first, but it just over time, the more I think about it, I do feel like if Natalia were to win, hypothetically, that this would have affected the change for WrestleMania. But yeah, this was actually a really good match. Yeah, Charlotte and Natalia really pull out all the stops, and it almost looked like Natalia was actually going to win this match. Especially in her home country. So, yeah, Natalia doing all she can to fight out of the figure eight, and basically Ric Flair, standing on on the apron and distracting Natalia, and Charlotte ended up getting the win by using a schoolboy roll up and using the rope leverage to help her retain the Divas title. So yeah, this is a really fun match, and hopefully we get to see more from Charlotte and Natalia have another one-on-one bout. So I really do feel that they have really good chemistry from what I'm seeing. Then we also have is, I guess you could say, one of the worst matches on the card, which is basically Brock Lesnar taking on what was supposed to be Bray Wyatt, but instead it was Luke Harper. So it was basically your typical squash match, Brock Lesnar going out there just doing German suplexes and crowd just go ape shit. Um, yeah, so instead they did like a handicap match, and Brock Lesnar ended up going over the Wyatts in that way. I don't really know what else to say. I guess they should have just had Bray Wyatt go in and just basically announce that Luke Harper is going to substitute for him instead. I mean they would have done like a similar thing if like at Starrcade 97 when Raven had Perry Saturn replace him to take on Chris Benoit, but they didn't do anything like that. I would think the rest of the Wyatt family would like interfere in this match. So I was really surprised there weren't any interferences at all throughout this show. And yeah, I just don't really understand that. And I don't know if there's going to be some sort of dissension going on between Bray and Luke, or maybe not. So, I mean, Brock Lesnar ended up going over the Wyatt family regardless. Not really much happened except for Brock Lesnar just being a badass. So there you go at that. And then you also have Sami Zayn defeating not Goldust, Stardust in the second to last match on the card. Another match that was given a lot, even though it was given a lot of time, it kind of really fell short. Stardust was basically in on the offense and relying a lot on rest holds, and the crowd just really bored to death and booing. So this is basically Sami Zayn's comeback. So Sami Zayn ended up defeating Stardust in a pretty underwhelming match, and it was very passable. I don't know what happened as far as the two wrestlers are concerned. Like either maybe Stardust just doesn't really have a lot of momentum going with him at the moment, or maybe the two wrestlers just don't have any sort of chemistry to help make this match a lot more meaningful. But regardless, it's Sami Zayn, found a way to defeat Stardust. I guess you could have had Kevin Owens come out there and maybe have some involvement in the match, and but none of that happened. So, yeah, Sami Zayn went over Stardust. Kind of a blah match. And then we have is the main event: Dean Ambrose taking on Triple H for the World Heavyweight title. This was the best match of the night, maybe the second best, but probably the best match as far as the main event's concerned. So, match started off pretty slow at first. It was kind of your traditional old school mat-based wrestling, and Dean Ambrose was basically in on the offense, working on Triple H's leg. And I would think that it just kind of seemed very awkward at first because Dean Ambrose is supposed to be the fan favorite and Triple H is supposed to be the methodical heel. So I was actually surprised that Ambrose, it almost felt like he was coming in as the heel. And, the crowd was pretty much 50-50 behind Triple H and Dean Ambrose. Triple H did a crippler crossface, which was kind of a pretty questionable submission move, especially since this was actually in Chris Benoit's home country. So I don't know if that was the right submission move to use, especially reminding the crowd of Chris Benoit, and they're not supposed to mention him. And then he like switched it over to the Rings of Saturn like quickly, so to prevent the crowd from even making any Benoit references. Dean Ambrose, it looked like he was going to win this match. And, he went for the dirty deeds, went for the cover. Ref went 1, 2, 3. And the crowd just popped for a moment, but I knew it was just so too good to be true. And there was just a lame excuse that the referee finds out that Dean Ambrose had his foot underneath the rope. It's all like, really? Really? Like you wouldn't even bother checking to see if Ambrose's foot was on the ropes before you could hit the 3 count. So I just thought it was just really like just trolling the audience. Um, and Ambrose also did a table spot where he did an elbow drop, and then like Triple H moved out of the way and almost got a 10 count. Actually, Triple H almost defeated him via countout, but Ambrose barely made it back to the ring. Triple H nails a pedigree, 1, 2, 3. Triple H retains the World Heavyweight title. And like I said, a really great match. And Roman Reigns didn't even show up afterwards, and they haven't even mentioned about Roman Reigns the past several weeks. So I think there's some sort of conspiracy going on behind the scenes of WWE. So I think they know that Roman Reigns isn't really getting the positive reactions that they wanted. So they just thought not by not mentioning him that the crowd would at least move forward, or WWE would move forward without him until he makes a recovery and such. So yeah, so Roman Reigns is gonna still fight Triple H. I'm not really sure how this is gonna go, except maybe Roman Reigns getting booed. So WWE's sticking to their gun, and with all this hashtag cancel WWE Network stuff that's been going on, I mean, I just don't really buy into that stuff. As far as the WrestleMania 32 crowd attendance is concerned, basically the tickets are pretty much sold out with all the get as many people and sponsors invested in this pay-per-view. I don't think they're gonna make any significant changes just to please the hardcore wrestling fan. So I think they're really, like I said, they're really sticking to their gun. They're gonna have Roman Reigns taking on Triple H. My gut instinct tells me that's not going to be the main event. It might be Undertaker and Shane McMahon in the Hell in a Cell that might close out the show. I mean, especially with all the stipulation that's going on about Shane McMahon winning the match, then he would get control over Raw, or basically control over WWE, as Vince McMahon would say. So this would be kind of very interesting to see which match will close out WrestleMania. And I would think that Shane and Taker might be the one to close it out. So I really don't know. I mean, anything's possible. Yeah, that's really my thoughts on the WWE Roadblock event that just happened. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And until next time, this is Gold Standard User 924 signing out.